Hello. Hey there, neighbor. And welcome to this edition of Good Neighbor Talks. Dion Hill, I'm your host. And this week, it took me some soul searching and some real thinking on how I actually wanted to start this week's episode. And this episode is based in history. And for those who are students of history, or avid readers, or just people that acquire knowledge, history is something that actually teaches right and wrong and gives us information that we could deem to give us the progress in moving forward, and to show us what we shouldn't do, because now, with hindsight being 2020 as the stereotype, which it actually truly is, you could actually come to a factor and say, yeah, that's where we as a society, we as a people, we as a race, so whatever went wrong, so let's not do that again. We often don't think about how we got here. In 2025, and just in the present day, we don't actually seem to just figure out how we got here and just accept things for what they are, because that's the way it's always been in our in our beliefs. But and often, with when you actually study history, it's always a way that you got here. Now this is June, and of course June is Pride Month. Now June has been Pride Month basically my adult life, and whenever I just look, just like as a black person, February's been Black History Month, and most people don't do their due diligence to find out when the existence of Black History Month came up. You just know February's Black History Month, and we bitch and moan because it's the shortest month of the year. But like everything else that exists in this country, it has come about because of something that people, ordinary people mostly, people like you and me, have actually fought for. Maybe not a month, but they fought for rights, and they fought for recognition, they fought for inclusion, they fought for survival of their existence. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about how Pride Month came about and who we actually have to thank for that. And many of these people got their flowers when they were still walking 6 feet above ground. But mostly, no, all of them are not with us anymore. But obviously, they made an impact that lives far beyond their bodily existence. I was trying to figure out a word or something specific to just hit the point home this evening. And one of the words that I came up with was riots. And obviously, right now, if you pay attention to the news, there are a lot of rioting quote unquote rioting going on in LA because of ICE and immigration situation. Rioting, civil unrest. Ultimately, for me, I use the word freedom fight because, see, the propaganda now and the way things work in a lot of societies, and America is no different. They use terms like rioting to as for you when you hear that you hear negative, you feel negative things. So the people that are quote unquote rioting or who have caused a riot is doing something unbeknownst to what society will want them to do. I'm here to tell you when I'm talking about the subject what we're discussing this evening. And when we talk about any discussion when it comes to freedom fighting and trying to get recognition for your people, America has never been a country that you can get what is done needed for you and your people if you are a person of that if you are if not a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant male. And you are seeing this now in 2025 when all this stuff was supposed to be adjudicated. But it seems as though now in 2025, the white Anglo-Saxon male has been pushed aside. And I don't want to get off on a tangent, but nothing in this country comes to someone, anyone, without throwing a blow. The American Revolution, taxation without representation, the Boston Tea Party, revolution. No revolution has ever been as Al-Haj Malik al-Shabazz, what you would call Malcolm X, people know him as Malcolm X. No revolution, no has ever been a bloodless revolution. There's been never has been a non-violent revolution. The Spanish Inquisition, the Civil War, the American Revolution, people fighting in the Congo, people fighting Indian and Pakistani war. What's going on in the Gaza Strip right now? I'm a student of the '60s and the civil rights movement. As a black man, and I always was had my kinship with Malcolm X because he was a lighter skinned black, and they called him Big Red. 'Cause when I did have hair, I had red hair. So, and I always consider myself, and I'm going to say this term, and it might be people that aren't in the black community or who are Caucasian or another or other thing, and it may show them have some type of offense to them, but this is my culture, and this is how we talk. I'm a field Negro. Um, I'm not a house Negro. Uh, and people often, what's a field? A field Negro will fight. Or as Malcolm has said, if the master got sick, you pray that master would die. If the house caught on fire, you would pray that it was a wind. House nigga would say, "Ooh, what's up, master? We sick? We because they love their master. And when it comes to the struggle to the LGBT community, and when it comes to the history of pride, there are many people that were in the field, and a lot of them was field Negroes, if in that term. And then I say that with no disrespect. Um, when I hear riots, because the principal place where this month started goes back, and I didn't know this. I was taught this. You know where I was taught this? I was taught this by IME. I was taught this at IME when we had our first me seminar, and we featured a person named Marsha P. Johnson, and Marsha P. Johnson was a black trans woman, and she was pivotal in the Stonewall quote unquote riots. And see, when you go and you actually seek education and you want to know how we got here, it's always a beginning point. And see, the revolution for LGBT rights spanned way before that first punch was thrown in 1969, June 28th, 1969. Let me talk to you about Stonewall for a minute. Now, before we get to there, let me give you my interpretation of pride before I was educated and before when I was, mm, I won't say ignorant, I will say a novice and just, hmm, what's the right word? Mm, a novice, an amateur, yeah, that's the right word. But I always went, I remember because, like I've told you in previous episodes, I believe, I was big on television and I would watch anything that was on television, any type of movies, this, that, and other. And often when it came to gay people in movies and television when I was growing up in the 80s, um, they basically focused on flamboyant gay men. And when it came to pride and actually love for who they were, they made it over the top. And it made it over top where as though you would often see gay males in short shorts and tight shirts or half shirts and just over the top as a respectful term. And that was done on purpose. You often was never you will see when it came to women that were in the community that were lesbian, they just seemed very dumpy and manly and in overalls, and it's just stereotypical to what they wanted you to see how these people and what they who they were, and that's not the true picture at all. You got to understand that historically, when you are an other, you have to fight for every little and scratch for every little. And it's been so many people over these years that have, if you are part of the community today in 2025, you are here standing on, and you are openly gay, you are openly who you want to be, you trans, you are you part of the queer community as a whole, and you're open with it. You didn't do that. You owe that to a lot of people that came before you. And Marsha P. Johnson is one of them. When you talk about Stonewall, Stonewall, oh, hold on. So when it came to like my images, when I watch movies, you would also, it was always like these little neighborhoods that were as though, and they often would say in New York when it was a movie or show, mostly movie, they would say you're going down to the village, and I didn't know what it was. Or they would say, they would say, and Pierce, forgive me, Pierce is in the background, but it would always be something. They would say Boys Town. Oh, he going down to Boys Town. He got caught down there in Boys Town. Um, these were terms in movies distributed to actually insinuate that somebody would, I kind of take it as being anti, being homophobic when they would use those terms. But 70s, 80s was, was a different time, as we done discussed on this show before. Um, but when it came to Stonewall, the Stonewall Inn was a gay bar. It didn't start off as a gay bar. Now, this is me learning and getting some information. It was a bar, it was open in the 30s, it, speakeasy and things like that. But in 1967, it changed hands, and it was very interesting. That's the term I'm going to use. It was very interesting that the new owners of the Stonewall Inn was the Genovese crime family. And the Genovese crime family, actually made Stonewall into a gay bar. Hmm. Italian mafia running a gay bar. Interesting. Now, you could say, they saw a market inefficiency and see where they could actually make money. But it just just ran kind of just countercultural to me, but I digress. Now, this gay bar was a safe place and a safe space. Hey, Angel, we often use the term safe space, whereas though it was safe for gay people to congregate, party, and hang out. It was BYOB, so you brought your own alcohol, and you could actually come and be who you wanted to be and be safe without any type of repercussions, maybe. Because the craziest thing when it came down to the 60s and many decades, homosexuality and being gay was actually illegal. You believe that? It kind of fucked me up to actually think about that. But then I thought about it as being a black man in America, a other, and it was illegal for a lot of things for my people to do that it wasn't illegal for an average, just straight white person. So it didn't, although it kind of threw me aback. I could see eye to eye with it. So often, what would happen, even though, of course, the owners of Stonewall would actually, pay off police for protection, they would often, their patrons would also often get, you know, rousted. It was police raids when it came to people in the community gathering and hanging out were often, and they would or be arrested for disorderly conduct or for bad, actually just congregating and being openly gay. These laws were on the books. And what had happened was on June 28th in 1969, it is said that Marsha P. Johnson, when the cops came to raid, her and her fellow patrons said no more, and they fought back. And she was accredited as being the first person to throw the first brick. And another revolutionary and intricate person in the struggle for trans rights and for queer people. It was another term back then, but was Sylvia Rivera was a trans woman, Latin X, as we would say now. Supposedly she threw the first Molotov cocktail. Now, this uprising, when it came with the police, was an ongoing struggle for over 6 days. Whereas though, and I'm reading that went on for over 6 days, and that the police was barricaded inside the inn, and many other people throughout the community just pro I would say protest. They would say riot. And see, I don't like to feed into the propaganda when they actually say riot when it's unrest, when you are actually fighting for something that is huge, just to be humane, just to exist. And as we always said, you know, if when it came to the Boston Tea Party and when it came to Americans actually separating from the British tyranny, they were they were they were touted as just uh revolutionaries. Some they were touted as you know great people. These are the people that established our country. But you think that's how it played over there in England? So, or were they just rioters? Were they just people that did not respect their authority? See, you can rewrite it any way you want, but you don't get anything. Malcolm X often said, if you want freedom, you can't go and ask the man for freedom. You have to go take it. You have to go take it. And see, these people actually fought to have something more than what they had, and they just was fed up. You jump in there, Paris. Okay. I must have got something wrong. Go ahead. What is it?
You forgot one person.
Wait a minute. What person did I forget?
Shout out to the
Who?
mask. It was a masculine lesbian that got the party jumped off. He
Hold on. Let me see. Let's look at this. I got a lot of names written down, so I might. Oh, good. So, because I got a lot of names that was written down on there. So hold on. Okay, maybe go ahead. Tell me the name you got.
Her
Who
name
was
is Stormy. And her last
Delaver? Yeah, yes. That was
Delaver.
gonna.
Yes, she.
Yes, I had that. Yup.
Okay. Initially, it was believed that Marsha got everything jumped off, um, in which she was involved in the riots. But Stormy, a stud, what we would call a stud today, um, it was illegal to for women to dress in men's clothing.
Yes, and I saw the picture in black and white. She would what we be what we call. She would be a drag king today.
Yeah,
Cause I
well,
see. Yeah,
she's a stud in the
yeah,
bar, and
yeah,
when all of that kicked off, she's the one that yelled, "Let's, whatever, let's kick some." She probably said, "Let's kick some ass" or "F
yeah.
or something," and then boom, everybody started fighting. But what I love about it is, unlike today, the community actually came together.
Hmm.
Gay men, stud women, uh, the trans women, and the word that you didn't want to say, which wasn't they weren't called trans people back then, they were called transvestites, and but
And you know what? I don't know. As an ally, am I even allowed to say that word? Because I know, because it always felt dirty to me when I heard the word years ago.
right,
It felt dirty. It just almost felt like the N word to me. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it felt dirty. And even the organization that Sylvia was called, it was called Star, the Street Trans, you know, you know, uh, but I just don't like that word. It just seems nasty. Just seems dirty. And then there was another person they said was Miss Major Griffin Gracie. And like they had all these pictures. It was so it was so wonderful researching this because so many pivotal people. And then I like dug into the '60s and just the people in the '60s because they basically said at the simultaneously, it's so crazy. And a lot of these people of color. So it was like as the civil rights movement was going on, the gay rights movement was actually going on at the same time. So it was just this, the '60s was a big just impasse of activism. And of course, this was before you and I was born. Um, Probably, and then like for instance, our parents were young. My mom was born in '56. So when this was going on, she was a toddler, and then like elementary and like almost like in adolescence. So it's just it's so incredible, and it's actually pivotal that people need to actually like, how did this come about? And it started there, but then it was like in 1970 to mark the year anniversary. Basically, people just went to the streets and just marked the anniversary of Stonewall,
right,
in Chicago, in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, you know, and then it just snowballed for that, moving on throughout the years. I had, but that ride in '69 actually snowballed a lot of activism from that across the country.
right.
So, like for instance,
So
the Gay Liberation Front.
it was sort of like the Black Lives movement, like people had minor movements, but just like the Black Lives movement just took off. That's what Stonewall
Right.
did
Because
because
they told me it said many other like the daughters of the Biltis was already like part of the '60s.
Belitis.
Belitis. I'm sorry. Okay.
I think it's
Okay.
called Belitis.
You might be right. And like I'm just I'm just reading and learning and absorbing. So I didn't. But it's like all this came about, and then it's just it steadily just started growing, growing, growing. Um, and one of us like the situation with Harvey Milk. Now, see, this is the thing. A lot of us, even people that are heterosexual, that like, but you see, like, and this was the whole thing. I think we went. It's just so funny. I've been an ally all my life, and I didn't know it because no, how we when we talked about the L word and we talked about movies and stuff a couple weeks ago, like I knew about Harvey Milk, I knew about the movie, I knew about his story. Why? Why would it? Why would I even pay attention to that? You know, it's just why would I even absorb that? And I know Sean Penn played. I know Harvey Milk was the first openly gay politician elected in America. He was on the board of supervisors in San Francisco, and he was murdered. Him and the actual mayor of San Francisco was murdered by a former board
employee.
supervisor who's probably homophobic.
He was.
I yeah, yeah. See, but the progression of the world continues to go on, and we don't actually have the and acknowledge the fact that somebody was here. You didn't, you know how bad Obama got a lot of shit years ago when he said you didn't build this. When he was talking about the highways and the reason why things were here, to help people with entrepreneurs and business. You ain't build that. I didn't build my freedoms. It was people in the generation that sweated before me. When it comes to Pride Month and when it comes to acknowledgement of LGBT culture and history and education, the people today, you ain't build this. Somebody made it. Now, I wouldn't say it made it more comfortable for you to be open. They trying to roll this shit back, but they made it more comfortable for you to be who you are. And they need to earn the respect because as many people, and you can stop me if you want, Pierce, but I've learned this in the last 5 years about the the hatred and the discrimination within the community, and a lot of times it explores and it goes against trans people. The only true reason why we have these proclamations in Pride Month and this celebration that's on the books is because trans people and people of color, when I was black, Latina, people of color, trans women. And that ain't got nothing to do with them running track, swimming, or playing or basketball or whatever this, that, and other. That old trans athlete shit. It don't got nothing to do with what bathroom that they use and this, that, and other. But these people in history fought for people in the community to have equal standing. And those people that are derived from that are the same today are shitted on.
I agree. And you know what else I find very ironic about the month of June in general? Everything that we celebrate in the month of June, you owe it to the LGBTQ plus community. Even Juneteenth, we were out there fighting for y'all. Um, we were right beside you. I can't right now off the top of my head give you any real examples, but I'm a firm believer that people are who they are no matter what century. And to me, LGBT people always been fighting. We even fought when we probably wouldn't even benefit, you know, the civil
What?
rights
It's the
movement
rights movement.
that was created by gay, funded by gay, and allegedly we hijacked that. But you know, with Pride
The,
movement, June, we got Juneteenth and all that. We were always here. I would imagine the gay slaves was fighting hard to get out from under the mess and stuff, just with the straight ones. Pride Month, Civil Rights Month. Y'all need to really pay attention. And I love this lie because I love history, the history of Pride, the history of it should have just been the history of LGBTQ. We have done so much for us to ask so little of people. We only ask for acceptance. Isn't that so? It's small compared to putting your life on the line, having to write movements and stand in the back of them because of your orientation or your identity.
you just that statement you just used made me think back to 2020 when the world was shut down, and it was after the death of George Floyd. It was a lot of civil unrest, and a black young lady said something that was very pivotal to me that actually blew her up into consciousness because she got surfaced everywhere when he was talking about burning down the Walgreens and the Targets. She just said, "We don't own anything. This is not ours. You, we should, the way we've been treated, you should be happy that we just want equality and we don't want revenge."
Yep. That's all we want is acceptance. We don't even want payment for any just acceptance.
And when you talk about now, and this is inside baseball, but see, when you talk about the 60s, and then Marsha P. Johnson was our first me seminar spotlight person. The second year I picked James Baldwin. And James Baldwin was pivotal as a when I'm talking was a revolutionary. When I'm talking about playing both sides, and when I say playing both sides of the civil rights struggle and both sides when it comes to LGBT, because he was a black man in America first, and he understood that, but he was also part of the community, and he understood that, and his writings, it's so many when it comes to it's it's so alarming how we can accept LGBTQ contributions when it comes to entertainment, when it comes to art and music and everything. But you can't accept the person, but you can accept their greatness. And he often wrote one of the biggest things was called Giovanni's Room was one, and he spoke about a love for another man, you know, and it wasn't dirty, it was beautiful. It's been so many people of that generation. When I started, I mean, I did a deep dive into people in the '60s when it was talking that was actually part of the LGBT revolution. With so many people, you familiar with all Andrea Lord, if I pronounced it right?
Mm-hmm.
She was self described herself as a black lesbian warrior, black lesbian mother warrior poet. When he talked about uh, Barbara, let me, I gotta look at my notes. I'm sorry. Um, James Baldwin. Oh, Christine Jurgensen, who was basically cited as being the first trans woman that had the surgery.
Yes.
Um, and then Dale Martin and Phyllis Leon, the uh, the couple that had been the older couple that had been together, and they were the iconic couple, and that was who the Marriage Act. They were the Marriage Equality Act. They pointed to that lesbian couple, and they and one of the it was a lot of Leonard Malkovich, who outed himself. He was a Vietnam War veteran who outed himself in the military to actually show the segregation. Well, not the just the homophobic uh, things that was going on in the military. But he was a Vietnam vet. Of course, these things still go on today. I'm pretty sure if you didn't know, and I just found this out today, that they're trying to change the name of the USS Harvey Milk.
Yes.
This is today, 2025, when
Yes.
Harvey Milk was a Navy officer who got of course, he got decommissioned because he was gay in the military. But in 2025, there's over 80,000 people of the community that's serving in the military, that's protecting you and I, but they are being treated as second class citizens. Black people, does this sound any familiar to you? This is the shit that I'm talking about. That just upset. Because guess what? I ain't pulling up no gun for this country. You call me what you want. I'm not. But it's over 80,000 people that are part of the LGBT community that are in the military, and they all this shit is getting whitewashed. And I was really thrown aback um, because the races and just the homophobia is just so rampant because these people, and you know what? I'm just these white people, these straight white people, just are so in flux that something is being taken from them, and that they have been so repulsively set up blaze the last 4 or 5 years when my people have been having to deal with this shit for 500 years. You know, it
You-
just makes me so upset because when you talk about the people about how the inequity of people of color, marginalized people in the LGBT community, anybody black, brown, they always want to say that's in the past because some of us that look like us have actually, you know, yeah, we not slaves, but it's still a systematic inequity, and it's still a hatred for people that don't worship like you, don't look like you, and don't love like you. So you tell me how this is the greatest country in the world.
You didn't
I,
you didn't mention, I mean, since we talking about the history of pride for our females, I've noticed a lot of you have had a lot to say about the trans community.
mm,
But ladies, you owe them your liberties too. If it
yes,
wasn't for the trans community alongside of the pride riots and stuff, if you notice, you started getting rights. You were able to open bank accounts after all of that stuff. Do you think that just happened just because, or because it was inconvenient for the L, the T to function in society without a male? So something had to give. We didn't want to live being with a beard. And even in your feminist movement,
what's a beard?
more important, well, a beard, when a gay man and a gay woman get married just to move along in society, I mean, you owe LGBT people a lot. Your feminist movement, your civil rights movement. I can't even think of a movement that didn't involve.
Because the craziest thing is people, and we use the term LGBT now, but gay people, queer people have existed all time through history. And if you don't believe me, when you watch movies that go back to the even even in Game of Thrones, they I'm just saying. Or uh when we talk about Julius Caesar's time, when it's all people in they've always existed. I wanted to go over a little timeline. Because I want to wrap it up a little bit. But the timeline that the Pride timeline, and I learned this week when I was doing the information. In 1969, it was the Stonewall riots, and then in '70 was the first the Pride March in Chicago, LA, and San Francisco, commiserating the riots from the year before. In 1977, Pride Month was first appeared in a newspaper talking about uh, and it was actually in the New York Times. In 1989, Mayor Ed Koch actually proclaimed June Lesbian and Gay Pride in History Month. In 1994, look up. This is a pivotal name, Rodney Wilson. Rodney Wilson was a history teacher, and did you know this one? Rodney Wilson was a history teacher in Missouri, and he actually and a coalition of educators in the U.S. made October LGBT History Month.
I did
He
not know
was a
that.
gay, yeah. He in 1994. He is still alive today. He is 76. He's 76 years old, and he has been teaching LGBT history for the last 30 some odd years. Um, and he wound up coming out in the 90s, and it was
Hmm.
really big because
The 90s. Wow, that's a long life to live without living the way you want.
yeah, because that he was still so it was 94, so that was what 30. He was he was in his 40s in history, and he was yeah.
In 1999, President Bill Clinton officially declared by a proclamation that June was Gay and Lesbian Pride Month. In 2009, President Obama declared it LGBTQ plus Pride. So we we also know about in in the coming years about the Marriage Equality Act and a lot of rights being given. But it was from 69 to 2009, 40 years. And it all started from somebody in a group of people saying no more. Normal, regular, everyday people saying tyranny will not be accepted. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So when I hear riots and I hear civil unrest, me, when I dig the digging and actually, I say revolution. And the revolution, as Gil Scott Heron, will not be televised. It's always going to be live. So you got to be in the streets and you got to be a part. So I thank those people that look like me or look like, but were not me, but they was people of color. And they was like, that's why I often say as an ally and being a black person, like, yo, if my people in the community, if my people in the community have all their rights, then it falls, I get CC. I always get CC, just like in the 60s when black people was marching, and obviously people in the LGBTQ community was actually marching and strategizing and actually flipping the bill from that shit. Everybody gets CC. Spanish people, Asian people, you know, everybody that's not non-white. And we ain't even gonna talk, even fucking white women who, I'm sorry, is our big, when it comes to DEI, nobody has actually benefited more than white women from DEI. But that's a whole nother political show that got nothing to do with the LGBT community. But did you want something to add? Because I wanted to finish up and talk about what we got coming up in the next. Nothing else to add? Cool. Because
I'm just laughing because what you just said.
but people don't think about it. People don't think about it. But because then we get into it, then we're gonna start to talk about voting and how people actually vote against their actual best interests, just because they rather be, I don't know, racist, homophobic, or misogynistic, or when it comes to white women, they rather just be underneath the thumb of, you know, it, I never mind. I don't want to stereotype everybody, but it's the majority.
You can't
So
just put it off on white women. Black women voted against like
oh,
currently
ow!
now. That's
I'm talking. No, I'm talking about black women. Well, first of all, no, black women always stand. When it comes to allies and it comes to actually dealing with it, what has to do with what's right. Black women are always the first ones to stand up. There's many always a black woman standing up for somebody in the community. As many times black women know right from wrong and they're going to say what's right from wrong. Now, if it's is it everybody is it is some Candace Owens out there, yeah, I get that. But majority black women have always been the guiding light and just the fortitude of what is right and when it comes to America. Same thing when it comes when a lot of times when it don't have anything to do directly with them. That's my opinion, but a lot of times,
Black
uh,
women are stand for LGB, but they will not stand in majority. Like, well,
oh,
most
for trans,
for trans issues, and
and
that's
you
ugly.
were absolutely, and you know what? It's funny you say that, and I don't want to, and I don't want to cherry pick because you're probably right. You would know better than me. But you see, I was doing my Simone Biles was pushing back against uh, uh, Riley Gaines about trans athletes. Um, Jasmine Crockett, I often talk about Jasmine Crockett, the congresswoman that out of Dallas, Texas. She constantly stands up for trans rights. You know, so I think sometimes I think no, I'm not going to get involved in that because I don't want to. I'm not a woman. I'm not a trans woman, and I'm not a black woman. But when it comes to just bullshit, when it comes to women's shit, ain't no, it's no other hatred than another hatred from another woman. From my what I see.
Get back to
But
your history of pride, because you was on the tangent.
yeah. Um, we have a lot of things going on this month. If you haven't seen our new show LGBTQ and Black that's premiered on Tuesday, actually let's try to you can go either through the app or on YouTube and actually take a look at that and actually see what the next episode is about. Also, you got something to say about that?
You wanted to know what the next episode was of
Yeah, the next episode coming in.
LGBTQ and Black is
Yes.
basically about 1 second because I was just working on it. I slipped my mind. But it's about again, LGBTQ and Black focuses on Black issues and the silly things that Black people tend to harp on. Um, Interesting show. I don't know if anyone tuned in. I suggest that you do. You learn so much. As much as I've studied our community, had conversation one-on-ones with all the letters, I am always learning something when I'm talking to the community members face to face, one by one. It's just an amazing show. So the next topic is I know why you are.
Mm.
And it's I know why you are. You could just fill in the blanks. Why you are a lesbian, why you are bisexual, why you are trans, why you are gay, why you are queer. And it's the Black perceptions on the origins of LGBTQ plus identity and straight folk trans attraction. Because as Black people in the community, you always know why something is going on or why that person is that way. You know, we're very superstitious and we know why you're gay. Oh, for example, if you're not Black and you're watching or you will watch later, one of those misconceptions about the reason why people are gay is because your son played with a Barbie doll or picked up a Barbie, or your daughter messed with one of those old Hess trucks. That's why she's gay. So that's what we're going to go into.
I love those Hess trucks.
So that's what the topic will be on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Tune in. If you're just, if you know, even if you Caucasian, you are welcome here. This is a safe space, and you want to peep in and find out how our minds think, how our parents' minds think. This is the perfect show. So it's I know why you are, and whatever you are, put it at the end. And we're gonna give you the black version of why people are gay.
Mm, interesting. Okay.
Because you know it's a long list of you've heard
It's
of
a
yourself.
yeah. I know. I mean, yeah, it was the whole the pink blue thing, and then
Yeah.
playing with it, put that doll down, and
If you put the baby, a boy in a pink outfit, he's gonna be.
yeah, and then if even as we discussed it like last week, we was having like me and my sister was talking about, we had a couple sensitive kids that cried a lot, and you know we just assumed that
If you indulge boys in their feelings,
yes, then yeah,
yeah.
and none of it is actually true.
So we're gonna dive into those deep dark things that black people think, and we're gonna just myth bust. And maybe we might not myth bust. Maybe some of the people on a panel might say that is the reason, or that probably is their experience. Well, I don't know. We'll find out.
You know what? Okay, because one of the things that one of the things that I heard, and actually a person in the community kind of swayed to me, is that and I didn't like their reason because they were molested as a child. That was the reason why they don't like to be touched by men.
Yep. So
I
we're
I
gonna
was
dive into all of that. We're gonna dive in the show next Tuesday. We are going to go in and we're going to examine all the reasons why black folk think you're gay or lesbian or bisexual or trans. All the reasons, even to the silly ones like boys are gay because they hung out with their mother too much.
oh
So we're gonna go in. It's gonna be a good show.
okay. Um, One of the last things that I did want to touch on before we advertise is the backwards stereotypes and laws that were actually put on the books, and they are anti-gay. And it was, but they didn't word it. Sodomy, and you can look up sodomy. Sodomy was illegal in this country for years until 2003. 2003. Whereas though Leonard versus Thomas, Leonard versus Texas was a Supreme Court case, whereas though Supreme Court ruled that all sodomy made it federal law that all sodomy cases was laws was unconstitutional. If you don't know what sodomy is, and I'm being respectful, that is oral and anal sex, and it was like basically back in it was law put on the books back in colonial days when basically people just had it seemed like they basically just had sex to have reproduction reproduction, and they basically just did missionary. But it when it was a backwards laws that was just whereas though they could actually lock up gay people. And but it backfired in the sense whereas though it even affected straight heterosexual couples. And and I just found that when I was just doing research, it was just fascinating that it just was taken off, unconstitutional 22 years ago. But that's just one to chew on, and that's for you to, how you can just see how certain as a society you have laws on the books to discriminate and to actually jail people for basically just being themselves. Um, we have a Pride brunch coming up in June 28th. Here we go. It's after the Wilmington Pride March, and it'll be from 11 to. Are we going 11 to 2 now? I think we're going 11 to 2. We discussed it. 11 to 2. Check our website or at IME IME Inc. And the menu's out. Just discussed it. We're going to have some biscuits and sausage gravy. We're going to have some chicken and waffles, shrimp and grits, some eggs, some fresh fruit, different refreshments. And we're going to have some good fellowship and just getting together and actually just, pride, and just, it's, every part of the community is invited, our allies. We'll be discussing, you know, our good neighbor initiative. So that's me basically talking to you again for a good amount of time. But this time I'm actually going to feed you, so it's worth the price of admission. So if you haven't already, go to our IME app or to our website and actually put yourself down for some tickets so you can be in the place. We would love to see you there. And one last thing, for those who's watching, and happy Father's Day. It's coming up this Sunday. Uh, I'm a father, and I look at it as though it's the greatest accomplishment in my life has been the creation and development of my children. So, for those people that's out there that are fathers, I wish you a happy Father's Day. You know, take it down because you can you can make a child, but to actually be a daddy and a father is another thing. And those things are mutually exclusive. And with that said, we'll see you next week, and thank you for joining us. And hopefully, you actually learned something. See you later, neighbor. Till next time.